Well, let's follow up on that conversation now. The issue of oil theft and initiative by the NUPRC to solve that problem. We have joining us now Mr. Temitope Kolade. He is a senior manager at Anderson. Because we do know that according to the reports released by the NUPRC, that there has been crude oil production has declined by 1.9% month on month and 1.49 megapacent per day in March from February. Well, we have Mr. Kolade now. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and helping us to understand, especially some of the proposed initiatives by the NUPRC. But unfortunately, it seems like Nigeria is still uncertain about the figures, the data when it comes to consumption or the volume that is involved in production or theft. And this is a long-standing conversation even before now, Mr. Kolade.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. It's unfortunate that we would have someone think that we don't have the figures. I think that the numbers should be very clear to several agencies of the government who are tracking this. For a couple of years, we have NEITI, that's the Nigerian Extractive Initiative for Transparency, has been tracking what happens within that space as well. And they give us figures year on year. To say that we don't have a figure, I don't think that that's a way to go. I think it's a case of what do we need to do to deal with the issues. The issue has been with us for quite a while. And whether we even have the figures or not, we need to tackle the issues because we know regardless that oil theft is an issue that continues to bedevil us as a nation.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's not a very palatable picture painted out there that we do not even know, the exact volume of our production or, the figures involved in theft. From your perspective, what are the agencies missing out for us to get the exact figures involved? At least once we know, it might be easier to deal with the issue.
Okay, for me, the number one agency is the NUPRC. Before now, it would be the DPR, very important. The other would be the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative that I mentioned earlier, and they're tracking that year on year. They have the figures. They have their own figures. Whether it's reliable or not is what we don't know. There are other agencies, security agencies, as well as the customs that also deal with the exports of whatever raw material or crude that we're taking out of Nigeria. They're also involved. So when you look at it from an holistic point of view, you will realize that it's the complicity of various agencies and individuals and cartels with respect to oil export that has made it feel like we really don't have the figures. I know that different agencies are tracking the numbers. Whether they do not agree on what the numbers are is another issue altogether.
So I guess it is time to look inward. But, there's been this conversation of that the nationals, the people involved in the core extraction of this crude are mostly not individuals with Nigeria's good or growth at heart, or most of them are not even Nigerians, that they're foreign nationals, and that perhaps is why we cannot get the right figure. I don't know if you've heard of such and what you think about it.
Well, the truth is that we've got very many people involved, both nationals and non-nationals involved in crude exploration in itself. And there are various methods. You would find that it's not just the international oil companies that engage in crude exploration. We have indigenous companies as well. And we have locals. We have individuals who have some very crude method of exploring oil as well. And some of them don't even export the oil, they refine. Some people will tell you that you don't find find that people within the Niger Delta are crying out for prices or scarcity with respect to things like kerosene and diesel, because they have their local refineries, they have their artisanal refineries taking care of that. And one of the things that it's also almost very clear to people is that some of the security agencies that are supposed to protect these assets of the nation are also complicit in the thefts of crude oil, which is one of the major problems that we have. So really and truly, I think that if you think about it, it's not about whether people are nationals or not nationals. Even nationals are also thinking about the social contract, and they're saying to you that even when it's completely reported by government, maybe they don't have all that they require. And so the way to get it is to take it from the source. And so there are different angles to looking at the issues, really and truly.
Yeah, so we have the Petroleum Industry Act, which is supposed to handle some of this. Does it speak to this issue?
Well, yeah, to an extent, it does. When you look at the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, one of the things it tries to do is that it helps to bring up an host community arrangement to ensure that people within that environment are able to cater to whatever assets that are within their purview, and such that they also own it in a way. And one of the things you'll find that vandalism is also frowned at based on that act. Now, what you see with that act against vandalism is that when you then find that people within a community are involved in vandalism, which is more like the talk of community policing that we're talking about, when people within that area are able to take some sort of interest in protecting the assets, it helps to protect the assets better. And if they are involved in vandalism in any way, it changes whatever they are able to take from the host community fund that is being provided for by the companies who are involved. And as such, it dampens the sort of development that we should see in that area. So what that should do is that it helps for some sort of transparency. It helps for the people who are within the community to see the assets are theirs as well, and they're able to protect it such that there is more transparency, and of course they are more involved in ensuring that this national asset is not just taken for granted by some mischief makers.
And then on the other hand, there's a talk of employing more technology or technology to solving the problem. Has that been explored from your perspective?
I don't think it's been explored. If at all, it's not been taken to the scale where we see it doing a lot. Again, what you find with technology is that even when you have technology, the way the computer experts would say that it's GIGO, is garbage in, garbage out, right? You find that you also need humans to man those technology, and whatever report they give or they decide to turn off their searchlights on would also not be captured, right? So more than technology is the willpower to deal with the issues. When we have the willpower to deal with the issues as a country, I think that technology is out there to deal with the issues and to help us track the issues and report it and deal decisively with the people who are involved. Again, sometimes it's about the caliber of people who are involved in this theft, which is actually the major bane of the issue. Once we have the willpower to deal with them, technology would be one of the tools that would help to deal with it decisively.
Yeah, sounds worrying if you say technology has not been employed, and the issue of the willpower, because that's actually where it starts from. Else, solution might just be staring us in the face and we would refuse to embrace it. Now, this drop in crude oil production, this I think this is the second month where we're recording a drop in our production. Does it have anything to do with more people, more nations embracing cleaner energy? Does it have any connection?
No, not at all, in my view. What you find is that sometimes recently, OPEC also actually revised our quota upwards.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we've been unable to meet the quota for quite a while. So it's really not about people embracing, clean energy. We have the quota to meet. We have more people to supply crude. Unfortunately, theft is one major problem that investors are complaining about, because a great percentage of what they actually produce doesn't get exported, doesn't get to the hand of the suppliers. It starts from the wellhead to the pipelines and to the barges that are taking them out of the country. Theft goes on from every part of the value chain, and it's worrisome. Some investors have taken to the solution of going offshore, where they find that people will not be able to access their facilities, and they have some sort of shield against this theft that we're talking about. That's what some people have done. But theft is one of the major problems that is really affecting the sort of production that we're able to report as a country. And for now, I don't think that the switch to clean energy is really a problem for production as a nation.
Yeah, okay, so apart from theft, there's also the talk on infrastructural decay. How much is that contributing to this?
Yeah, partly also a structural decay, especially when you realize that pipelines are needed to convey this crude from one point to the other. And vandalism is one thing that has contributed to the quick decay of those infrastructures. So apparently you can't talk about the theft without talking about the decay in the infrastructure that has been contributed to by definitely the vandalism that you see people engage in, and the sort of sabotage that you see people also engaging with those infrastructures that are in place. So really and truly, I would agree with you that, of course, the infrastructure is also part of it. And the fact that, of course, over time, we see that some of this infrastructure also needs some sort of rework, some maintenance, and not so much is being done in that regard as well.
All right. Does this drop in production and not being able, does it reduce our under recovery costs?
Yes, it definitely increases our costs, right? When you look at the cost of production, at some point, NNPC had said that what they wanted to do was to ensure that producers, upstream companies have like a sub $10 production cost. But what you find really is that the cost of production per barrel is actually skyrocketing. And one of the things that adds to this is this theft, the cost of maintenance when those assets are vandalized. And so you find that we just continue to have so much of cost going up there. And when you then look at how much we can recover as a country as well, it's difficult for us to recover, because we've got a lot going out, we've got a lot being lost into inefficiencies and into all sorts of sabotage here and there.
All right, Temitope Kolade, just hold your thoughts. We need to go on a short break now. When we come back, we need to follow up on that line of thought that you started there, how it's affecting revenue and how it will affect Nigerians as individuals. But that'll be after the break. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Yeah, welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning, and we'll still have with us Senior Manager at Anderson, Temitope Kolade, speaking to the issue of crude oil theft, which the NUPRC raised over the weekend. Good to still have you there. Thank you so much for still staying on, Mr. Kolade. Well, obviously, this is going to affect revenue. We're talking of FAC. We're talking of, payment of salaries. We are talking of issue of servicing debt. So this will have a holistic and even an individual impact on Nigerians.
Definitely correct. From the angle of the NNPC, when you look at it from the fact that NNPC is in joint venture with a number of stakeholders and operators within the oil and gas industry, it means that every theft in those joint ventures also affect what NNPC should be reporting. The other side to that conversation is that the NUPRC is supposed to collect royalty. Royalty is not collectible on oil that is stolen, right? There is also petroleum profit tax that should be paid on oil. When it's stolen, it's not reported, and so revenue is lost. It has a great deal of impact on revenue assurance. The other part with the under recovery is that when you then look at the actual cost of petrol that we have and how much the landing cost is, and the fact that you're subsidizing at the moment, and whatever gains you have from whatever oil revenue is what it should use to deal with the deficit. It just increases the deficits here and there. And just like you mentioned, salaries and very many other things, debts that we need to finance and all of that are impacted by the growing revenue deficits that we report.
And it does not in any way reduce the subsidy because, I mean, just as I read earlier, the price, the global price of oil, Brent and oil is increasing. And that means that the subsidy that Nigeria is paying is also increasing.
Correct, very correct. So it's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves, and one can only hope that going forward we find government exercising so much powers to ensure that the stakeholders are brought on a round table and conversations are held to ensure that we deal decisively with this issue. It's something that has been with us for quite a long time. Unfortunately, what has happened is that it continues to grow because we didn't deal with it sufficiently enough. At first, we were talking about just the locals causing these issues, but now you find that a lot of complicity involved, and very many people who are so-called elites are even suspected to be involved in the case, and it's because it wasn't dealt with or it wasn't nipped in the bud. And again, I don't think it's something that is out of place to deal with at the moment. It's something that if you take a decision that we want to really deal with it and we know how bad it's growing, we're going to find a solution to it as a nation.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, it most likely would start with the willpower to do that, because this also connects to the issue of debt servicing, which affects funds available for infrastructural development, which of course now fits into the GDP, because, I mean, no infrastructure, then it becomes more difficult to carry out businesses, and connects us to the non-oil sector, which we've been talking about diversification like forever. I don't know if are we getting results?
We're getting results in trickles, in my view. We can make it grow faster. Again, when you find that what accounts for foreign exchange largely is still oil, that's why the CBN has come up with policies to ensure that we deal with how much of outflows of forex that we have, to ensure that, again, with time we see so much how we can actually grow our forex. Largely what accounts for it remains oil, and this oil is the same thing we're saying. We can't even report 100% as going through the right channel out of Nigeria, and we have the right compensation for it. So just like you mentioned, it's something that needs to be dealt with comprehensively. When we have all the funds coming back, definitely we can focus more on the non-oil sector and see how much we're able to push the development in that regard. If you ask the Federal Inland Revenue Service, for instance, they will tell you that they've done a lot with collecting more taxes from the non-oil sector, but are we doing as much as we should or as we possibly have the potential to do? I would say no, we can do a lot better. And again, if we have all the revenue from the oil sector and we are able to deploy them rightly into the non-oil, we would see a lot of development, and soon we'll be able to achieve that diversification that we've been talking about for quite a while.
Yeah, when you say efforts or attention should be moved to the non-oil sector, I mean, we've had a lot of policies. We even have the CBN having the, you know, the RT200 to encourage manufacturers and all that. So what else should we be doing? We've been talking about this, and we have a lot of efforts towards this diversification plan.
Yeah, so the policies of the CBN for me appear to be policies that will deal with the issue on the surface, right? There are more, there are deeper issues that we need to deal with, and is the issue of our economy. What exactly, how productive are we as an economy, right? We have not been as productive as we really should be. You would find that power, for instance, is one major issue that we have, that even when you talk about small businesses contributing to production as a nation, our GDP as a nation, we're not seeing so much of that because much is spent on polluting energy, right? People use diesel to power their products. Sometimes there are shut-ins, there are shutdowns in their operation. And so we would also find that some other times you look at transportation, it's not also working. People spend a lot of commuting time and they're not able to put those times into some productive use that should have given us some returns, some better returns in terms of our production, our gross national production, for instance. So really, I think that there are critical sectors that we need to deal with. For me, the power sector is one serious area. The other one is the security issue that we need to deal with. Currently, you'll find that, just like I mentioned earlier, even people operating, investors within the oil and gas sector are thinking of going to the offshore. And why are they thinking about that? Because they are not seeing as much production when they stay onshore, because they are more prone to vandalism, they are more prone to attacks, they're more prone to theft and all of that. So security is one major issue. Farmers cannot go to farm. So it's a big issue bedeviling us that we need to deal with on a general scale. If you deal with the security issue, definitely we would have more production, we have better production, and we have more revenue as a country. If you deal with the issues of ensuring that technology is even, we have broadband technology and people don't have to commute necessarily to do their work, you have people producing more in terms of the hours that they put into work. And of course, the issue of power is something that needs to be dealt with. So again, CBN can do all it can with respect to managing the flow of funds, but more importantly is that we need to deal with the basic and fundamental economic issues to have our economy going in the right direction and giving us the sort of production that we need.
All right, thank you so much. Quite a whole load there that you gave us. ICT, security, power, I mean, those actually stand out, and unfortunately, these are the realities of our times, or of the non-oil sector at this time in Nigeria. We have to thank you so much, Mr. We have to thank you so much, Temitope Kolade, Senior Manager at Anderson. Thank you for sharing your morning and your time with us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you too. Thanks, Ine, for having me.